This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and a very warm welcome on this fine Monday where you are picking up your GSPN Daily English Premier League podcast with myself, Mikey Thompson, and today I'm joined by none other than Michał. How are you, sir?
Hi. Thanks for having me here. I am feeling down as a Man United fan, but then again, well, it was a foregone conclusion, you know. Like we'll talk more about this later.
Absolutely, and what a fifth round of football we've had. It's an FA Cup weekend, and we're going to be looking at the key talking points from this weekend, including all the Premier League teams that took part. And we're going to start with none other than our favourite team, our love, our joy, our hatred at the current minute. It is Man United. We go to Old Trafford. And we had Fulham who came to join us. And it was a fifth round where, you know, at the minute for our season, it could have gone any way, this game for me. And United started the same as they've started every game this season, in my opinion. Struggled, conceded at possibly the worst time to concede in a football game, just on half-time. But they did answer back, and I do want to highlight just how good Bruno Fernandes's goal was. He took it so well. Your favourite man, Delo, down the left-hand side, squeezed a beautiful pass to him, and it was a great finish. Both teams continued to press and push for the win, and they did have chances. However, none of them prevailed, and the game went to extra time. And then once extra time had finished, it was penalties. And for me, penalties are a luck of the draw. It's one of those things that come down to the specific moment and whether the goalkeeper guesses the right way and whether the calibre of penalty is prolific enough to beat the keeper. And it proved today that Fulham were better. Bernd Leno proving his best and becoming the hero. And obviously you've got Lindelof and Zirkzee, who are the villains in this story. I'm going to come to you now, Michał, and just ask you, what's your overall from this? Can you summarise your feelings coming out of this game?
My feelings about this game are that it was a long overdue. That elimination of Man United from FA Cup was long overdue, especially after that goal by Harry Maguire to make it 2-1 against Leicester. Yeah, we celebrated, but it was offside. If there had been VAR, we wouldn't have never gone through, and Leicester would have played that tie instead of us against Fulham. But okay, we can't turn back time. And what I did see today from Man United's side was great, let's just say, a rejuvenation of their powers, of their will to attack, to go for it for the first 15 minutes. And then we witnessed something that, well, Man United fans are super used to. So basically stepping back, stepping down, allowing the opponent to do some tricks with the ball, to get a hold of the possession. And, the definition of insanity is repeating the same action and expecting different results. And unfortunately, this is exactly what fits the defense of Man United. We step back every single time, and then we are super surprised that we concede. Especially in the way that how you described was one of the most ridiculous ways how to concede a goal, really. So, it was well deserved by Fulham to go 1-0 top. Second half, it was slightly better, but I will say this. If you waste opportunities, if you have such a bad touch, the way that, none other than Chido Obi Martin had, what else do you expect? I mean, just looking at the stats of this guy, Chido Obi-Martin, 5.7, one of the worst ratings of the entire game. Oh my god, he only had one shot on target, two shots off target. Whenever he would even like come close to the ball, he would immediately lose it. And he was actually no better than Højlund, who was also dramatic today. It was a shocking performance. So, yeah, and Bruno Fernandes came to the rescue again. You know what? I really think that once we think about restructurization of the club of Man United, the executives at Man United, they should really start investing in buying a cape, Superman cape, for Bruno Fernandes, because he's a superhero. And dear Fulham fans, you want to call our superhero a rat? Fine by me. He may be looking even as a cockroach for all I care. The most important thing is that he is the one who's putting it all together. He's keeping it up together, and I just cannot wait for Ruben Amorim to get rid of almost entire squad of Man United, which is here currently, replace it with the better players, and link them up with Bruno Fernandes, and hopefully we will see a better Man United moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to pick up on a couple of things you said, United conceded from a corner, and they use zonal marking, which is something that I really struggle to get on board with. I don't fully understand, and I'm by no means qualified to make this call, but I don't understand how it's better than man marking, because with man marking, not only do you mark the zone of which your man is covering, but you're also covering the opponent, so making their life harder. Whereas you have, I think it was Mazwari on the back post who couldn't react, and he looks as though he's defended poorly. But arguably, he hasn't defended poorly. He's covered the position of which he's been told to stand in, and it's impossible for him to react to an oncoming footballer. So I find it really difficult to understand why teams choose to do zonal marking, how it benefits you as a defensive side. I don't really understand. The goal was a sloppy goal to concede, but I only think it was sloppy on the basis that when you mark zonally, you are quite stationary. And if you've got players moving off that offensively, it's very difficult to do anything about it.
Exactly. And oh my goodness, just listening to it, like, in what kind of state is Man United currently? I mean, while you were, saying your part about how Man United's defense was performing, I actually took a look at the latest quotes from the game, and I've just read a quote from Ruben Amorim that he thinks that we had the best chances in the game. And it's important to say that with the substitutions, we had our chance to win the game. Mr. Amorim, I don't know how to put it bluntly to you, sir, but you have to capitalize. You cannot just look at the stats of those people starting up front. Look at Eriksen, how he didn't want to touch the ball at all. Look at Bruno Fernandes trying to be the only one to somehow keep it together. Look at your defense in zonal defense. Look at all of that, Mr. Amorim. And please make some reasonable conclusions, because you know what, Mikey, we have to understand the implications of Man United crashing out of FA Cup. FA Cup was probably one of the easier ways, let's put it that way, to secure some European football next season. Because if somebody wants to tell me that Man United have a better chance of claiming the Europa League title this season instead of FA Cup, no. Sorry, FA Cup was the way to go. And now this is out of the way. In the league, Man United cannot really hope on clinching any European positions from the table. So right now, it's going to be do or die against Real Sociedad in the round of 16 of Europa League. And frankly, Mikey, I don't see that happening.
No, you could be right. I also think that Amorim's got to come out and support his team. He can't come out and slate them for going out the competition, and generally that conversation will probably happen in the changing rooms.
Right.
But somebody who's not having to listen to that anymore is Marcus Rashford, who's happened to make the journey over to Aston Villa, and he's quite enjoying himself as it comes. And also is the other big transfer that Villa managed to pull off, which is Marco Asensio. And they played at Villa Park against Cardiff. on Friday night, if I'm correct. Yeah, it was a late Friday night kickoff, and Villa won 2-0. Smashed it. Asensio got 2, and he fires. Unai Emery's tied into the FA Cup quarterfinals. What is happening that every person that leaves Old Trafford that hits a vein of form that is better than we as United fans would ever imagine possible?
You know what? One of the late Polish coaches from Polish League, he would say that sometimes clubs are like black holes. And unfortunately, Man United has become a club of a black hole. It's become just like a toxic cesspool, really. And this is it's very sad for me to say that, but it's true. People who leave the club are better off leaving it and joining another group of fresh ideas, of fresh people, of people with fresh ideas, with fresh perspectives on football, and all of a sudden they thrive. And more power to him. More power to him. I've said that before. I've said it many times before. I'll say it again. Marcus Rashford, thank you for respecting yourself, really, for respecting what kind of a player you are. You know what? Just talking about the performance of Aston Villa against Cardiff City here for a moment. I had a feeling that, especially in the first half, Aston Villa wasted a lot of opportunities, and I think in that kind of level, they should not be wasting as many opportunities as they did. And that was only the Cardiff side, all right? I mean, it's not the most difficult of oppositions. And I saw Ollie Watkins, I saw Bailey, I saw Asensio, Rashford, all of them trying, McGinn, all of them trying to somehow find the target, but they failed to do so. And on that kind of level, sure, against Cardiff, they were given a pass. They won 2-0. Victory is a victory. One should not judge the victors, right? But we will be talking about what's going to happen in the quarterfinals. We're going to be talking what's going to happen in the future with all of those teams involved in the FA Cup. And I have to tell you, Aston Villa has to capitalize on their chances. Because if they don't, if not here domestically, then internationally, more specifically in Europe, in Champions League, somebody will take advantage of Aston Villa wasting their opportunities, and their European dream might be cut short. So they have to start being more clinical.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, in the first half, they made 7 chances, but they were all saved by Ethan Horvath. Don't know how to say his name. But Marcus Rashford and Marco Asensio are linked up for the 3rd time this season since both joining in January and broke the deadlock. They changed it. Villa will be happy that they've got the result. They kept a clean sheet. I agree. I take your point. You've got to be more clinical. But arguably, you could say that the stats stand up against them. If you look at how many shots they had, they had 25 shots in total, 10 on target. Cardiff had 4 shots and only 1 on target. Possession was 70-30, 68-32. But you get my point. I think the game was Aston Villa's. They were in control. It was never really in worry. But I think the biggest thing to take from Villa is that the fact that they've lost John Duran and replaced him with 2 players that have the bit between the teeth and potentially could carry Aston Villa into having a very successful season. They're still well within that zone that I think is the most interesting zone left in the Premier League now, of making European football. There's about 6 teams that could potentially do it. And there's not many points between them. So, yeah, big chances for Villa, and fair play to them beating Cardiff and getting through to the quarterfinals. But before we go any further into today, let's hear from our ad, Bioniq.
Your body is unique. And Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
So we are going to jump into our next section of the FA Cup weekend, and we are going to Crystal Palace against Millwall. This game stands out for many reasons, but one in particular that we felt that we needed to talk about, and it is the Mateta challenge. It's important to acknowledge that Palace won 3-1, and the challenge has caused a lot of controversy over the internet, pundits having their opinions. Where do you stand on it? I'll quickly explain what happened, and then you can give me your opinion. So the
Sure.
ball's coming through to Mateta. He's going through for the ball. The keeper's come out into no man's land, which is what we'd call that position where he's outside of the box. And he's gone to clear the ball, but he's gone to clear it at head height, let's say. And he's kicked the ball, so he's played the ball first. But he's gone through and kicked through Mateta and causing him quite a severe injury where he's had to have lots of stitches. We said that he's doing well, so that's really important to acknowledge. I don't think there was malice or intent in the in the contact. I just think that it was reckless, and he wasn't in control of that situation. That would be my overarching opinion from that. What did you take from the decision?
The decision was absolutely correct, and actually, when I saw that incident for the very first time, and that I had to keep it on repeat just to understand what happened there, the image that came to my eyes was basically Schumacher and Battiston from 1982. Well, of course, I watched it from archives. I wasn't alive back then. I'm 1999 after all. So all I could do is just to see that tape from 1982, and that was like the World Cup semifinal. And the German goalkeeper, he just basically powered through the French forward, and he knocked him out, and he broke his jaw. And at the time, there was no VAR, obviously, so the German goalkeeper wasn't sent off. But I think that what we saw at Crystal Palace against Millwall was the closest to that incident. I really think so. And there could be a lot of opinions. For example, I saw Barton with his tweets on X, defending the goalkeeper, and also blaming Mateta for being reckless for even trying to get to the ball first. Let's just say it's kind of ridiculous, so I do not want to take too much time on that. But what I do want to say is the goalkeepers will say that the goalkeeper just has to make a decision, and he's just going for it because he wants his team not to concede. It's obvious. But then again, with more reckless challenges like that, the health of the players is endangered. And that challenge was super unnecessary. And the red card was absolutely fully deserved. And I really wouldn't be surprised if the Millwall goalkeeper was suspended for just more than one game, because it's just unacceptable in today's football. It really, really is. I mean, with so many games already being played, with already so many injuries that we've got this season, with the fact that players are already just being exploited beyond anybody's imagination. And on top of that, we've got, let's just say, over-motivated players who want to basically, have the approach of Robbie Keane, that the ball may pass, but the player shall not. Maybe back in the day, with less games and with more time to somehow recover, maybe it was acceptable, but not anymore today. I'm sorry. So for me, 100% justified, sent off, and he needs to cool his head off for at least next 3 games. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting when you mentioned the other incident, which I've never seen. I'll admit, if I have, I've not known I've seen it. But it reminded me of a couple of other big calls. There was the Nigel de Jong against Xabi Alonso in I think it was the Euros final, Spain against Holland, or it might have been the World Cup. I can't remember. And that was a reckless challenge, but And there was another one, Nani against Real Madrid at Old Trafford.
Right, yeah, 2013, round of
Yeah,
16 of Champions
who
League.
was that on? I can't remember who he challenged it on. I can't think. I can see it happening as well.
Mm-hmm.
He stood landed on someone's chest, but both of those instances, there was no awareness of what was around them. So they were following the line of the ball, and the
Right.
contact came after it. And I think that the decision for those at the time was quite harsh. But this one, the goalkeeper had full knowledge of what was in front of him.
Yeah.
I think it was extremely reckless, and the decision to be sent off is right. I mean, a man's got 25 stitches in his head
Mm-hmm.
after what has happened. It's not okay, and I think for Millwall, your job is to keep your team and keep it steady and don't do anything stupid. That would have been probably the last words out of the manager's mouth. And then 6 minutes in, 8 minutes in, your keeper's been sent off, and you've got an uphill task, which was already a massive challenge. So a fast and speedy recovery from us all here at GSPN for Mateta, and the right result for Palace. I'd like to move on to another game that was very interesting, which was Newcastle against Brighton. What a game of football. It saw everything. It had FA Cup drama. It was 1-1 after full time, and good old Danny Welbeck was on fire. In 114 minutes, he managed to bag the winner for Brighton, which was fantastic. But the game had discipline issues, to say the least. We've got Gordon with a sending off and Lamptey for Brighton with a sending off in regular time. So extra time was played with both teams down to 10 men. But the big news is really coming out of Newcastle and the fact that Gordon will miss the Carabao Cup final.
Yes, and that is big because ahead of the Carabao Cup final against Liverpool, a player like Gordon would have been a great addition to Eddie Howe's structure. Gordon, he's pretty physical. He knows how to behave in that kind of situations. He will not be afraid to just barge in with his body towards his opponent and just throw him off balance just to retrieve the ball. But he does it in such a way that it's just on the edge between it being fair play and being a foul. But he knows that, he got it to perfection, and so the fact that he lost his cool in such a situation which really did not require from him to lose his cool. It was just like another scuffle in football, as always. And yet, because of his conduct, he got sent off. And now Eddie Howe will have a big problem because now we understand, especially after this game, that Newcastle's not only after this game, but especially after the Premier League bout between Newcastle and Liverpool at Anfield, that Newcastle is clearly the team that have got their imperfections at defense. This is no longer the team that would line up with just 5 defenders at the back and just try to keep Arsenal forwards off. This illusion is gone because they're going to have to come up against Cody Gakpo, against Salah, against Soboslai, against Gravenberg, all of those guys who are at peak of their creativity when it comes to offensive football, and really they have to sort themselves out. Really, Eddie Howe has got to think of a good game plan without Gordon and with Burn and Cher not being as solid as they were just a month ago. So that's going to be an interesting final. Lack of Gordon, but then again, if you have a problem with keeping your head cool, you just have to stop. You just have to stop at some point. Just like we mentioned, the case of Millwall goalkeeper. And with Lamptey, that it wasn't. If I remember correctly, that was not due to his aggressive behavior or something like that. He was just he just committed another foul, which was worthy of a second booking. So it wasn't that bad as Gordon won, but still, nowadays football has become pretty aggressive, And there are more and more tackles, there are more and more injuries because of the fact that the players just they do not calculate as much as they used to. And just to go back slightly to that Crystal Palace game, that the game that we mentioned just a couple minutes ago, it was pretty aggressive too. So this could be another line of defense. That the atmosphere of the game was pretty aggressive. It was pretty brutal. Like there were like at least 20 fouls or 20 something fouls on the pitch, plus those which weren't called by the referee. So and then same thing with the Newcastle Brighton. I mean, like they just want to get to that finish line so bad that, just like Jose Mourinho said, you cannot be good guys for 90 minutes. You have to be. Let me just say bad guys. He used another word starting with a C, but I can't say it because come on, we are a PG show.
Certainly are. And Eddie Howe's got a couple of big decisions to make. He's already been questioned whether he's going to appeal the sending off for Gordon ahead of the Carabao Cup final. I think it would be wise or silly not to. Although if you look at it and he feels that it's not worthy of an appeal, they're not often overturned appeals. It's very rare for that to happen, and I don't know what the logistics are of how that happens and how quickly it can happen. But another big decision that was discussed, excuse me, that I thought about was Alexander Isak, or Isak, should I say, starting. We didn't expect him to be playing, and it was a question mark. Two reasons: he scored a penalty, put them 1-0 up. But later in the game, he appeared to be injured or close to injury. He seems to be okay, but it was, in my opinion, quite risky ahead of what is Newcastle's biggest game for a long, long time for their club, to play their best player and risk him not being available for the Carabao Cup final. And I don't know, maybe you could take your hat off to Eddie Howe and think, he's going for it. But also, there has to be some form of conservation towards a massive game for the football club.
Yeah, it could be. Like it really could be the case. But then again, on the other hand, when you look at Newcastle, they're really dying for trophies right now. They want to put something in that trophy cabinet. They do not want to be mocked for eternity for the lack of trophies, or for the fact that they would come to the final, but then they would just blow it off at the final hurdle. So that could be another motivation. It's just like, even when we just look at the Premier League table, like just to put that information out there, it's obvious. But right now, Newcastle, they are sixth with 27 games already played, with 44 points. And in comparison, if they wanted to be second, they would need to somehow get to those 55, 56 points and hope that Arsenal would start losing some games in the Premier League. So let's face it, no chance for Newcastle to get some trophies there. So the only chance for Eddie Howe's side to pick up a trophy, which is so longed at St. James's Park, is FA Cup. And I think that's the reason. That's the reason why they're going 100% on. Because, like you said, that there could be something to preserve, like Isak, like we have to keep him safe. He cannot pick up an injury at this critical moment of the season. But then again, looking at Man City, for example, or looking at Chelsea, it's not like those teams are super solid. They could be dropping points of their own. They could get some injuries as well. Like, anything could happen. So I think it's a wise move from Eddie Howe to focus on FA Cup. It's their only chance to pick up a trophy this season.
Wow, writing them off. Well, 2 weeks today, the stage is set. They will be at Wembley playing Liverpool on the 16th of March. And what a platform for them to do that on. And talking about platforms that are good to set the right tone, have a listen to why we choose Zencastr as our chosen podcasting platform.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out as the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone, AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the description to learn more about Zencastr.
Absolutely, make sure you do that. And we're going into our final section now where we're going to wrap up the weekend with our own personal views and highlights from what we've seen. And then we're going to have a quick discussion on the quarterfinals, which is now drawn and live and ready for everyone to see. With regard to my personal highlight, I would like to say I feel like the FA Cup has to have a passion in it, and it's all about the David and Goliath analogy for me. That underdog taking the game to the bigger man, the bigger team. And for that, I'm going to go for Plymouth Argyle. They ruined Liverpool of hopes of getting a treble maybe this season. And they took the game to City, and I really enjoyed it. It was a backs against the wall job for them. They did get beat and beat comfortably in the end, but I promise you, as a game, there was nothing comfortable about it. They went 1-0 up and took the game to City, and unfortunately for them, I said if they can get to half time at 1-0, they will have a chance. And it wasn't to be. They conceded on the stroke of half time or just before. And then, City went on to win, which is fantastic for Man City and probably the expected result. But what I wanted to acknowledge was a team that is significantly struggling in league form, going to a formidable Man City side, which we know isn't at the minute. But you understand my point. The calibre of team is significantly different. That's what it's all about for me. And not just setting up to go by and enjoy the process of playing at the Etihad, but actually taking the game to them. So, that's my highlight from the weekend. How about you, Michał? What are you spotting that you want to talk about?
The highlight that I would like to talk about is the fact that Matheus Cunha had a great chance of becoming the nightmare for Bournemouth fans and for Bournemouth players out there, but he just lost his cool and he got sent off. Damn, we've heard that story before. So, so that would be my highlight. But just before elaborating on that, yes, I'm sorry, Newcastle fans. Absolutely, you still have a fighting chance against Liverpool Carabao Cup final. Exactly. I for some reason I just I forgot about it. Like it was just like my brain kind of blanked for some reason. Sorry. So coming back now to Bournemouth Wolves. So another reason why I wanted to highlight this game as my pick of the weekend was because when we were doing the forecast Friday with Tom from Daily West Ham, we predicted that this would be one of the games which would be resolved after penalty shootout. And lo and behold, Bournemouth beat Wolves only by penalties after drawing by 1 goal apiece. Matheus Cunha scoring the 60th minute, cancelling out the goal of Evan Nilsson at the 30th minute. It was such a jubilation from Bournemouth fans to see them taking the lead, to somehow get the revenge for Wolves costing the Bournemouth side the Ilya Zabani after he had been sent off. But then Matheus Cunha scored again. That was a beautiful strike, by the way. It was from outside the box. So, wow, kudos to Cunha. So, like I said, he could have become a hero, but then he received the red card. And that might have been one of the reasons why Wolves one of the reasons why they eventually lost that penalty shootout. Kluivert in that game was awesome. Quattara, as always. I mean, to be honest, I've become a little bit of a fan of Justin Kluivert in those last weeks, because I really think that he just encapsulates what the modern football should really be about. It's about speed, it's about accuracy, it's about good technique while counter-attacking. It's no longer positional football. Sorry, Pep Guardiola, you said it yourself. So that is my pick of the weekend. And kudos to Bournemouth. Best of luck. to them in the quarterfinals. And as far as Cunha goes, you have to wait for another fixture against Bournemouth to get your revenge this time.
It was a great game. It had everything in it. I just think the timing of that, allowing your emotions to get in front of you as he did, there's no argument it was a sending off. It's a straightforward decision, but your side are going into a penalty shootout. You want your in-form striker to be on the pitch taking a penalty. You don't want him walking down the dugout angry. And
Absolutely.
I think they've let themselves down there a little bit, personally. But we'll see how that affects, because they would have gone through, or if they'd have won the penalties, perhaps, which Bournemouth did, and they are going to play Man City. But they've got a home fixture in that one. How do you see that game playing out?
Oh, Bournemouth, Man City! I just cannot wait for Kluivert to show Pep Guardiola to not to eat Pep Guardiola's words, because he was kind of praising that kind of style. I would say to show him in practice what modern football is all about. I cannot wait for this bout. It will be one of the most interesting bouts in when it comes to this FA Cup quarterfinals. I'm really looking forward to it. Man City, yes, I cannot write them off. The second you start writing off Pep Guardiola's team in England, you could be in trouble. You really could be in trouble. You don't have to, but you could. And I think this is exactly what Newcastle did when they went to the Emirates in the Premier League. Right after Man City had lost to Real Madrid in the Champions League in the first leg, Newcastle thought that Man City would be in some of form, that they would be disgruntled, and then Omar Mamouche appeared, and all of a sudden he scored a hat-trick in that game, and overall Man City won 4-0 against Newcastle, if I remember correctly. That is, So wow, I just cannot wait. I really just cannot wait for that fixture to happen. Fingers crossed to be a cracker of a game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to say, well, from my point of view, City are now the favourites to go on to probably win the FA Cup. Right behind, though, I would argue, Aston Villa, who would also be, in my opinion, in contention as they go to Preston in the quarterfinals. And I think probably a straightforward result for me. I don't see any hiccups there, apart from FA Cup glory for Preston. But yeah, I can't see anything past Asensio and Rashford getting another link up to see them through that game quite comfortably.
Right. I agree. Aston Villa, they actually got a very lucky draw, so kudos to them. And then, well, we will see. I actually have one technical question. Do we already know which ties will compete against which other ties in the semi-final, or is it going to be drawn?
That's a really good question. I think they're always drawn in the FA Cup.
Okay, so we do not know the basically the road to Wembley for any of those teams just yet. Okay, all right, yeah, because then again, because here's another argument that I would like to bring up to this discussion, because if we look at the teams which are left in contention for the FA Cup, yes, as far as Newcastle go, as far as Newcastle went. They're already out. Yes, I did mention that they wanted to win the trophy as much as they want, and as much as they can. But then again, let's look at the league positions of some of those teams. Right. For example, we look at Aston Villa. Aston Villa, they're currently 10th in the Premier League, but those are only 42 points. All they have to do is just to start winning up a little bit more, and then they might end up in those European positions. They still have got the Champions League. Some other teams, for example, we can look at Bournemouth or Brighton or Forest. Those teams, they do not have to focus on FA Cup that much, because their position is far better in the Premier League table, if you know what I mean. That I have a feeling that here that would be the calculations galore, at least in some of those aspects. So we're just going to have to see how Aston Villa does in the Champions League. We're going to have to see how Bournemouth, Brighton, and Forest do in the Premier League. what their position in the table is, because we have to remember one important thing. The winner of the FA Cup has a European spot, regardless of whatever position they finish in the Premier League. So, for example, I could see the likes of Crystal Palace, for example, fighting until the very last minute to clinch the trophy, because that would be a great chance for them to show in Europe, to show themselves in Europe next season. Aston Villa, Bournemouth, I'm not so certain that they really, really crave that FA Cup victory. Of course, from the prestige perspective, of course, but we're just simply talking about cold calculations. Brighton, Forest, we really do not know. We really don't know how it's going to pan out. So it's all circumstantial. So we're just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I would like to disagree with you in a little bit of a way, just because I think surely these teams go into it like they don't tactically look at a game and think, we're not going to play our best squad because we're not that bothered about the competition. I think we look at each game as an individual entity, and I think there has to be some tactical decision into the build-up of fixtures. But when it's like it is currently, I think if I was an Aston Villa fan, I'd want them to win as many games as they possibly can, go as far into each competition as they can, and I'd see that as more successful than missing out on Europe. We actually spoke about this the other week. How do you distinguish between a good run in the Champions League or your league table performance? Because they were having an impact. The midweek games and the weekend games. I fully take on board that point of view. But when you're a team like that, I would say it's very difficult to say which competition is more important than the other. Whereas when you're a Man City, and we're talking about a Man City now that are out of the Premier League, out of the Champions League, all their eggs go into FA Cup for it not to be a complete disaster this season. Has to be. So I would look at that slightly differently. You've also alluded to Brighton, who are going to play Forest or Ipswich, depending on the result of tonight's fixture, which again has a potential to be a fantastic season for Nottingham Forest if they happen to get into the quarterfinals. And then just to finish off, we've got Fulham Crystal Palace, which is the old Premier League round, including Bournemouth and the other games, to be fair. It shows just how strong the Premier League is, I guess, when it comes to these competitions, and how difficult it is for those smaller clubs to make a great success in that.
Just to make one quick point to what you said there about this approach of teams towards FA Cup. Yes, I have to admit that, there are also other circumstances, right? But then again, how can we possibly read the words of Unai Emery, who, when asked whether Aston Villa are contenders for the FA Cup, he said no. So how are we supposed to understand that? Because for me, if Unai Emery says that they are not contenders for the FA Cup, then I guess the answer is simple. They're focusing on Champions League and on the Premier League because they think that this is where their fight is, right? But then again, somebody else could argue that, okay, that maybe Unai Emery said that during a press conference, but then he decided to throw Marco Asensio, Marcus Rashford, and Tielemans and McGinn. So those are basically starting lineup, almost. Not to mention Emiliano Martinez in goal. So, it could be the case of mind games. The second I say mind games, I just recall Rafa Benitez versus Sir Alex Ferguson. Beautiful times. Sorry, I digress. Yeah, but you understand my point, right?
I know, fully take your point. I also think that adds to the disillusion, because I think Eddie Howe would have probably said the same. Last week we were arguing that he was saving players in the Premier League for the Carabao Cup, which is in 3 weeks' time, and nobody could quite understand the logic behind it. But he then plays, Isaac plays today, and I just think what managers say and what they do are two very different things. I think they have to do a certain thing that's right for the fans and for the players, and then what they actually do. So what the teams they play at the time. I don't know. I think as a manager personally, I would go as far as I can in all competitions. It's crazy for him to say, I didn't know he said that it's not a priority. But if he said, yeah, it is a priority, and they went out at the weekend, this weekend, it would be all eyes on him and, it's a failure. Whereas he's already said that it's not. So he's kind of reducing the flack that he could get if the result didn't go their way. It's all mind games. You're 100% right. It's a beautiful thing, and that's why we love the game.
Arsenal, used to be a big club. First thing that comes to mind.
And on that note, we are going to end this fifth roundup for you here at the GSPN Daily Podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, Michał. Until next time, from me and you, it is goodbye from me.
And goodbye from California. Thank you, guys. And just remember to subscribe, remember to like. The more you guys are out there, the more excited we are to make more content. Is that right, Mikey?
Absolutely. Speak soon.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.